evening, everyone. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Deirdre O'Shean. I'm Kingdom Minister of Arts and Sciences, and I was requested to present this instructor spotlight by the University of Atlantia. I was very flattered. It's a great honor to always have a part of the university, and these instructor spotlights are really a useful way of keeping our momentum going in between actual universities. So again, welcome, and we'll get started. I've called this session the Eye of the Beholder because we're talking about ANS displays and competitions here, and how we respond to them is very much in the eye of the beholder. Now, the focus here is going to be on competitions, but a lot of this will also apply to displaying items at ANS events. So let's get going. All right. At the last university, I taught two classes. One was on documentation for entrants. The other was on practices for judging. And part of what I realized there is that there are two sides to every story. The way it goes for entrants, how they approach it is in some ways an opposite of what happens when the judges come to the table. On the other hand, there are certain commonalities, and I will mention them as we go through. As I say in the notes, decades of experience, not just me, everybody who has participated in ANS displays and competitions knows what a difficult balancing act it can be to both present something and get it understood by the people who are viewing it, and also as a judge to make an assessment of the object, performance, whatever, and convey it, their opinion of it without insult. I've heard many, many horror stories where strong feelings have come out as either a reaction to the judging or the judge getting a reaction from the entrant. It's not the easiest thing to do on either person's part. Especially for people who are new to ANS, it can be very hard to hear that the entry you have created falls short of the reception you anticipated. We all make things, it's a creative process, and we pour ourselves into it, and to have somebody look at it and go, well, you could have done better, it's really disappointing sometimes, even heartbreaking. And for judges in that situation, it can be very hard to accurately calibrate how your response should be to the entry without crushing people's hopes and dreams as far as the ANS goes. And okay, so many people who come into ANS competitions have trouble preparing an entry that's a good demonstration of the skills that went into making it and documenting it. Sometimes we try to do things that we are not really skilled in, but we've created something, and we want people to see it for what it is. I've encountered places where we've had works in progress displayed, but they weren't labeled as such, and they therefore didn't get a good response. So it's very important to understand that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you have not accurately conveyed the essence of your ANS entry. Sometimes the judges have difficulty understanding this. It isn't necessarily the entrant's problem. It's just that the judge has certain perceptions or a certain approach to judging and it doesn't mesh well with what's in front of them. Some arts are very hard to judge objectively because they're something that, like a poem or a song that can elicit an emotional response. So this is also one of the problems that we frequently encounter in A&S situations. Again, it can be, if you're an entrant in an A&S display or competition, this is your baby. You're putting it out there for the world to see. And for it to get anything that even feels like a negative comment can just put you off. I've heard stories of people who entered one A&S thing and it was so horrible that they left the SCA. This is stories from literally decades ago, but the principle is there that our sensitivities are frequently huge when we comes to the things we make. On the other hand, judges are asked to be objective about something that's a really personal thing that's out there in front of them. They usually don't know the person whose work they're judging, and they're usually asked to judge to a high standard. And someone who's fairly new is maybe not going to be up to that standard, and all they're going to hear is the negatives when in many cases the judges are actually saying very positive things and very encouraging, but it doesn't feel like that. And one of the other things that happens a lot is you put your A&S entry out there to show how far you have come, and then the judges sit there and tell you how far you have yet to go. This can be a really wearing thing because you get very excited about your progress and everything you've accomplished, and then to feel like you fell short really can be very disappointing. So judges have to be very careful to make sure that not artificially, but accentuating the positives when they encounter an A&S entry. We tend to lump A&S activities under the heading of competitions, but really the vast majority of them are displays or challenges. These are done to a different standard. If you put out something at a display and someone leaves you a comment, it's just one person's opinion and it's an unsolicited comment. You are not putting yourself in a position to treat this as something that's necessarily objective. A&S challenges are usually done by a sponsor or sponsors, and they are the person who ultimately makes the decision about who is the winner or not. And these are very much a subjective personal choice. So someone can do something absolutely brilliant, but if the person sponsoring the contest feels that something fits better with the theme of their contest, they may declare that the winner. So a challenge is a very different thing. Judged competitions are things like the Temporia Atlantia or the Persona Pentathlon, where you sit down, there are judging criteria that has been worked out, and you have very specific judges who come in and go through each entry, item by item, line by line, and try to understand the entirety of it. It isn't just somebody who wanders by the table and says, oh, I really like the look of that, and leaves you a note and a token, which is very nice to get, by the way. I hear a lot of positive feedback on things like people leaving tokens and something for the artisan to have as a memory of this. I think one of the most important things about A&S in is that artisans want to feel that they are seen. They want to feel they are understood. Yeah. Okay, so one thing people tend to forget is that this is voluntary. I mean, we come into these displays and competitions because we want to. No one's forcing you to. People who do these or have, they don't have an agenda, but what they have is an opportunity to share their work. You don't have to do that. And, you know, there's one thing that if you are in pursuit of ANS awards, and I don't think that's a bad thing to be, if that's your personal ambition. I say that guardedly because, you know, going out for awards for the sake of awards is not a good thing. Going out for awards as a measure of your progress can be a good thing. And one of the ways that people on that path are encouraged is to enter displays and competitions to get their work known. There are other ways of doing it. I'm not going to go into them here, but it's important to remember that we do this because we want to, for whatever reason. The same thing for judges. These are people who are volunteers, who are taking a chunk out of their day to sit down and go through your entry, the piece by piece, page by page of the documentation, and bringing their expertise to the table to try and give you the benefit of their knowledge and experience. And so this is something that is usually done in a spirit of collegiality. It's important to remember that these people are not trying to discourage you. They are invested in you succeeding. They want you to succeed. But sometimes we lose track of that. Participating in ANS is a really good way of making connections with people you may not have otherwise had a chance to meet. When people go through and view displays, the static displays, they frequently take the time to sit down and look at your name, look at your documentation, work through it, because they really, really want to know where your work has sprung from. And then, you know, share with you if they have anything they think is worthwhile, but also so they can learn as well. So this is a really important aspect of what we do with ANS. Winning a competition is nice. It really is. I've never done it, but I see how happy people are when they have, and I just gives me a thrill. But we don't do this just to look for the winners. We look for this for the people who are engaged in their art. Again, it's a way to create networks. It's a way to find new skills, new interests. It's really one of the ways we get a chance to look at the work of people who frequently aren't our near neighbors. When you know, travel the kingdom and have a chance to participate and show people your work, it's really enriching for everyone. It's important when you're doing ANS competitions to remember this is one time, okay? If you have a really bad experience, it's just once. There are so many things that can happen that can color the mood of your day that you need to remember it's just one day. The KMoAS keeps records of people who entered the competition and what they put in there, but we don't keep records of pictures of them and things like that. ANS displays and competitions are a chance for people who are in the ANS orders to come around and see who's doing what. So that's a valuable point of connection. But really, this, winning one is lovely. Some people consistently win over time. That's lovely too. But it's just one contest. So always keep in mind that, this isn't necessarily determinant of the future. I always encourage people to try and not take judging too personally. I know that's a lot to ask because somebody is judging your work, but you need to remember that judges can be wrong. Judges can have bad days. It's hard to judge stuff. It takes time. It takes concentration. Relatively few people are willing to judge. We tend to have the same people over and over again. Most judges are not comfortable judging outside of their areas of expertise, although some will do so. So let us recognize the imperfections in the judging system. Judges do their best, but sometimes it just doesn't work well. And we work with the system we have. I'm going to encourage you to participate in the spirit of joyful engagement in the arts and sciences. It's really producing the artifacts we do for the SCA has been, at least on my part, of immense satisfaction, immense creativity, immense opportunity to learn new things, to be exposed to things that I would not normally explore, to know that there are things out there that I am not going to explore, but I think they're pretty cool anyway. ANS should be pursued for its own sake and for your joy in your art. The idea of participating in competitions, there are people out there who love competing, but the problem with the ANS is, of course, that we are constantly comparing apples, oranges, kumquats, and rhinos. We just don't have such, most ANS competitions have trouble narrowing the array of things to the point where you can actually make really good quantitative and qualitative comparisons from one entry to the next. It's just, so the best part of them is just understanding your own progress in these things. All right, and now we get to the housekeeping part, which the Atlantia KMoAS page has resources. It has links to judging forums, criteria, things like that. It has links to some guilds and Facebook groups where you can post questions and make connections. It has pages where they list the available competitions to go to and what purpose they serve. We don't actually have a page for documentation, which is something I think needs to be corrected, but there is really useful easy doc form on Karen Larisdotter's page, which is a really good starting point for preparing your documentation. I will say documentation is one of those great heartaches and completely important things that have to be there in order to have a good entry, because we cannot judge your entry if we don't know what it is. We have to be able to say, this is a basket made with underwater basket weaving according to these sources. If we don't have that context, then we cannot evaluate the work fairly. So just a note on the importance of documentation. And then if you have any questions or comments, please get in touch with me. I'm always happy to talk about these subjects and get more information from people, because I think it's really important that we try and refine how we do things and how we instruct entrants and judges, because one of the things that often comes up is people did not understand the nature of the competition they were entering, or did not understand how they were supposed to judge it. So always more information is better, and understanding your particular needs might be helpful to other people as well. So feel free to contact me. And now I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, how do I do that?